Begin transmission. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Outer Rim transmission number 18. I'm here with Ben. We have Milton. It's his birthday, so we're giving him the week off, and we are going to get into it because this week we are going to talk all about Luke Skywalker, if he should be in CGI. There's a deepfake artist that is being hired by Lucasfilm. We're going to break that all down. We're going to talk about the latest with the Galactic Starcruiser Hotel in Disney World. There's some updates there, as well as the High Republic Phase 3. We have some more details there. And of course, we're going to break down the latest episode of the Bad Batch titled War-Mantle, all on this week's episode of Outer Rim Transmission. As always, we are going to talk about our week in Star Wars, and I'm going to throw it over to the Ben on this one.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. Want to wish a happy birthday to Milton and you, of course, Chris. Both of you guys having a birthday this week. But anyways, yeah, my week in Star Wars was pretty interesting. You know, anybody who listens to this podcast knows that Milton always recommends the different radio dramas from the original trilogy. So I decided to, give it a try. So I started listening to the A New Hope radio drama, and I got about 45 minutes in. And I absolutely love it so far. It's 5 hours long. And the crazy part about it is they're actually they pulled some characters out of the A New Hope radio drama into current canon. So one of the early books that got released under the Disney umbrella for Star Wars canon was The Rebellion Begins. It's like a middle grade Rebels novel. Well, anyways, one of the Imperial officers in the book, Lord Tyon, him and his Star Destroyer, the Devastator, they both are in canon, and he was one of the actual lead Imperial officers to start the A New Hope radio drama. So it's cool because in the beginning of the audiobook, I guess, he basically is an Imperial officer. They're on this planet, and he's basically trying to sway Princess Leia into marrying him, because he's like, hey, if you marry me, basically your family's powerful, and basically if you're marrying into the Empire, it'll make your family very powerful and everything else. So you have this little story with him and Leia, kind of going back and forth, because he's flirting with her and everything else. And it's hilarious. Just hearing an Imperial officer have more of a human personality, because, we're all used to them being basically almost robotic, military people. And this guy's flirting with Leia and everything. And it's pretty comical, actually. So that was a really good, so that was a cool little connection to canon. And then another part that was a really big connection to canon. So in the first, that's the A plot storyline. And then the B plot storyline that's starting is you have basically Luke and all of his friends. They're hanging out on Tatooine, and there's this girl in the book named Cammy. And it's really cool because in the Last Jedi novel, Luke basically has a flashback, and he basically has an idea of almost an alternate timeline of where he would have had a wife, and pretty much it's this Cammy girl. So it's cool seeing, they pulled her from, an old radio drama from 1981, into the Last Jedi novel. And, these little connections like this are so cool. And, basically with this radio drama, the first 45 minutes, we're not even up to the part where, literally, where I stopped listening yesterday. Basically, it just ended at the part where Bail told Leia, you need to go find my Jedi friend Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine. And, so that's how much of you get, basically prequel leading up to the events of A New Hope. You get 45 minutes of content, and it's really cool because you get to see Luke, listen to Luke talking with Biggs and his buddies, and all kinds of different things. You have, as Milton mentioned before, you have the all the different soundtracks playing. Mark Hamill is playing the voice of Luke, which is awesome. And it's a really, really good radio drama so far. And I'm only 45 minutes in out of 5 hours.
Hmm. Wow, that's fantastic because the runtime is about 2 hours, or it's one of the shorter Star Wars movies to my knowledge. A New Hope is,
Yep.
but to get that like precursor, kind of like a prelude to the beginning of A New Hope, and now we actually know what the prelude is, and that's a Rogue One, a Star Wars story, but and that's how canon has been going. Um, there's been characters pulled from old Legends material that's been placed in it, specifically from a certain point of view. The very first book has so many of those characters, so many of the background characters, they're fleshed out entirely with their own stories, their own backstories, their own motivations, what they're doing around the time. Parallel to we see them in the A New Hope, right? So that's pretty cool. And you guys keep really talking about these damn radio dramas, and I'm getting more interested the more I hear about them. That's interesting. You said about the Rebels book tie-in with that one pilot. That's those Rebel
Yep.
books are the
Lord
ones.
Tyon is his name.
Now that guy actually sounds familiar. I think he might have popped up somewhere else besides those young reader novels. I feel like I've heard of him before. So
You might. You might. I feel like I see. That's why I thought about him as well. I feel like we've heard his name before somewhere else because soon as it said that name, I was like, that sounds really familiar. So like that was really neat. Oh, and you even in the first 45 minutes, here's another fun thing. Like, sure, this isn't canon or anything. So obviously at the beginning of episode 4, we have Vader invading the Tantive 4 and all that. Well, you actually. So when Lord Tyon and Bail and Leia are on this planet, you actually have Vader there too, and Vader meets with Leia, and he pretty much goes over a similar thing. Like he basically says, like, "I know you have the plans," and it's cool because like back then they had Vader almost was in the perception of so like now nowadays. A lot of us view Vader, in my opinion, as like Vader, if he wants something, he'll just like take it. He'll just use his brute force. But it's cool because in this book, I laughed a little because Leia is like, well, I'm sorry, Lord Vader, you're not allowed to search my ship. And he's like, well, we will do this legally then. He's like, I'll get the proper orders from the Emperor. And so like, Vader actually like is trying to like obey the law versus just like bully his way through. So I got a little laugh out of that.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Then, like, what do you say?
That's hilarious because calling back to the latest issue of the War of the Bounty Hunter series, and he's at Jakara trying to get back Han Solo, and he sends in Sly Moore, the administrator, to do the bidding, and when that doesn't work, she gets outbidded by Jabba the Hutt for 1,000,000 credits, and then Vader just busts the doors open, and he's like, Han Solo's mine, and it's just like, all right, if that's not gonna work, I'm gonna just use brute force to just get us. It's exactly the same point.
Oh yeah, no, it was funny, and then you even get an appearance from like Captain Antilles, all these little characters, and it's really cool because like after Vader leaves, like Leia and Bail find out that Imperials are like basically listening in on their comms, so she's like, even with her being young at the time. She's basically using her smart. She's like, well, I know if they're listening in on us, I know the only way to do it is, basically since Lord Tyon is like she's basically saying since he's into her, I'm going to use that against him. And, they go into the Tantive 4 and she's like, well, Dad, I don't know what I'm going to do. But, the one way we can resolve all this is if Lord Tyon will let us leave, I'll consider taking his hand in marriage. And, and then it cuts to like Lord Tyon and he's like, this is a turn of events. And, it's a funny little thing. But I don't know, it just adds a lot of personality to the different characters. Like, and, like I said, adding more wit to Leia, interesting, take on Bail. Bail, it's funny, like listening to him because he sounds like an old, like Southern farmer. But it's really good.
Yeah. Seeing an Imperial officer in a different kind of demeanor is just entertaining as heck. Just hearing about that. and hitting on Leia. That's hilarious. That's something that we don't get a lot of that kind of humor in Star Wars. Because people know their boundaries and they know like Leia is of royalty. They know that she can stick up for herself pretty good. So she's not gonna let guys lay into her that way. She's very
Well,
bossy and can be commanding. Like, nope.
oh yeah, that's pretty much how it is, and it's great because like that Lord Tyan guy basically acknowledges like that's the reason he's hitting on her is because he finds that like so admirable and everything that she's such like a strong leader and blah blah blah, and it's really cool just seeing like his personality, um, and then just yeah, it's just I don't know, it's just a whole different perspective. It puts more of like I guess it humanizes some of the Imperial officers a little more just because of that. And then also, I just like the fact, even in A New Hope, like even though it was 1981 when they recorded this. So, we hadn't got to like, sure, we saw the Emperor and Empire Strikes Back in 1980 and then in 83 for Jedi. But like they mentioned the Emperor like 3 or 4 times in the
Hmm.
first 45 minutes of this thing. So it's like, that's really neat.
Whoa, yeah, because
Um,
we didn't even know there was an emperor that existed at that point.
Yeah, so I was like that's really cool. They mentioned the Emperor like this. Like I really really like that a lot. And then they actually also like non-related to the Leia storyline as well. Like so going back to like Luke and his friends, you get the whole basically the cut scene or like the deleted scene of like where Luke's like looking up into the sky, looking at the battle, like right before the Tantive
Yeah,
4, like that
yeah.
whole situation.
Uh-huh.
Like you get that whole thing with Biggs, and it's really cool. You get a whole good, really good conversation between Biggs and Luke, like a really good in-depth conversation between them. Like basically Biggs saying, how he joined like the flight academy and this and that, and basically he's gonna become a deserter and leave for the rebellion and everything. And it's
Yeah.
really cool. And it's really cool though because Luke's like, "Oh, I wish I could do that," and blah blah blah. And Biggs basically calls him out. He's like, "Luke, look at it. Like every single time, every single harvest comes around, you say, "Oh, I can't leave because of the harvest. I can't leave because of Uncle Owen. I can't leave because of Tusken Raiders." He's like, "No, the only person holding you back is you, and you're just using excuses because you're scared to leave. Basically, your comforts of your own home." And he basically calls Luke out on it, and I don't know,
Ah.
it's just really cool seeing like a whole different take, like basically Luke getting taken to the ringer, like, "Hey, dude, like you're holding yourself back here."
So that's why that could be the impetus for his leaving is Biggs has that voice in the back of his head at that moment where it's like enough is enough. I've done this over and over and over again. I gotta just pull the trigger and just go out on my own.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
really
telling you, man,
cool, and it
you
makes
gotta you gotta
Biggs
give
a
this a
much.
listen to. I think you're gonna really like it.
We shall see. I'm getting more and more into these
Yep.
audiobooks. So as was mentioned, it was also my birthday this week, so it was pretty cool because I didn't even know that Milton's birthday was literally 2 days after mine. I was like, oh no freaking way, that's freaking cool. At the end of July, both of our birthdays. So I definitely had a good birthday. I spent time with family, with friends. Went to a local theme park here, Six Flags Great Adventure, New Jersey. Went to a water park down the shore. And of course, I got some really cool Star Wars presents. So here's one. And this one is from my girlfriend here. This is my Boba Fett
Oh,
controller
nice.
holder. Um, so I'm going to use this for my custom controller for Xbox Series S. And you can just hold it like that.
That's awesome.
So
That is really
it
cool.
it's got a lot of detail too. I was very surprised, like all the dents in his armor and the jetpack looks really cool. And just like that, like little, but he's like basically a bust. Like even without the controller in his hands, it looks just really cool to have on a shelf. Um, and it does come with like a charger and stuff, but I don't need it for that. But I mean, really cool piece of collection here. It's made from Cable Guys. I've never heard of this company before, but I'm
Oh.
probably pretty sure they probably have other characters that do the same kind of function. I think she said there's a Darth Vader version, of course, but she's like, "Oh yeah, you got enough Darth Vader, but let me get it you Boba Fett." I was like, "I appreciate that. I appreciate the Boba Fett." And we were also listening to more of the audiobook for Light of the Jedi. That was the first time I was listening to it. So we were painting miniatures, Star Wars Legion, listening to that. I was having a great time actually listening, even though I've read the book, actually listening to it now and getting a different feel out of that. But happy birthday to Milton. Hope you're doing well, man. But we will talk to you soon next week, hopefully. And now I want to segue into a new segment we're going to have here on the show. And we are going to be talking about what's out this week. Specifically for publishing this week, we have a brand new Star Wars High Republic novel, came out on Tuesday. It's called Out of the Shadows, written by Justina Ireland. This is the third book of third book of Wave 2 of Phase 1. It could get a little bit confusing when we're talking about the specific release windows of these books. But this is the book that I have a review for on the channel. It is all about hyperspace and the Nile, and it has the main characters of Venestra Rowe, of Nan the Nile, of a new character named Sylvie Yarrow or Sil Yarrow. We also have Wreath and Master Comic, a bunch of characters returning, Imri, the Padawan of Vernestra. So there's a lot of human struggle in this book. I thought it was a little bit on the slower side of things. That kind of took me out of the experience. For me, it kind of dragged just a little bit. But if you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts, you guys can go ahead and check out the YouTube channel where I have that review posted there, as well as a recap. So if you aren't interested in reading it, maybe just want to have an idea of what happens, I have my recap video for Out of the Shadows up as well. And as for comics have been getting very busy. It's been a far cry since like a year ago when we would get like 0 comics. Now we're getting like on average like 3 comics a week. Star Wars Adventures from IDW has an adventure with Luke and Leia trying to find a new base. They end up on Vegano. That is the planet of Jedi Fallen Order, when you get to go with Cal, and that's where he finds his little buddy BD-1. There's a Jedi temple there. And then there's also the backup story, because Star Wars Adventure comics always have 2 stories. The backup comic is a really interesting one. You're going to like this one, Ben. It's all about Captain Athano, the Crimson Corsair. And in this story, there's a couple really cool things, actually. A lot of Clone Wars era stuff. So he has this whole big ploy where he sets up his first mate, Qui Gold, to basically set up a ruse to steal this guy's ship. This guy's ship happens to be a Separatist cruiser, which is really cool.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
that is cool.
Straight out of Revenge of the Sith, and it's in the sequel trilogy era, by the way, this story.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a Separatist ship, but it gets better because Captain Athano, the Crimson Corsair, has a crew. He has the first mate, Qui Gold. He also has a Gamorrean who's like a frenzied Gamorrean warrior. He also has a Twi'lek like slicer character, and this is connected to the previous book. He actually has a clone trooper on his team. The clone trooper Kix.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, Kix from the Clone Wars is in this, and he is the last clone trooper alive ever. Because what happened was
wild.
In the previous book, the whole adventure with the Crimson Corsair and the lost gold or lost treasure of something or another, the lost treasure was actually this character of Kix, who was frozen in carbonite from Count Dooku, or by Count Dooku. And they find his carbonite slab and actually revive him. And now he's alive and well. He's got new armor, and he's just ganging up with those good old pirates out there in the wild space. And it gets better because they find the ship, they get the ship, and they go to a relay point, which actually signals more of the location of the Separatist cruisers that they didn't, I guess, like burn down for materials. So potentially you could have an entire fleet of Separatist cruisers flying around with Captain Athano at the charge, leading these ships around, having havoc all over the place, probably after the events of First Order. So that'd be cool, seeing these guys like Rogue Squadron post the Rise of Skywalker, having these guys be like the main enemies, like having this bunch of pirates on these Separatist ships, like with the iconography, I can't even pronounce it. Just the image of these Separatist cruisers with the brand new tech would be really, really cool. Plus, the
Oh yeah.
armor of kicks and everything. It was like, holy crap, that's awesome.
Oh yeah. Well, when you were first describing that, my first thought was like, man, you could connect this to Rogue Squadron. Like, here could be your like your villains or your whatever pirates, etc. for Rogue Squadron, and like just the idea potentially of having like a clone trooper involved, and like that's one thing. Don't get me wrong, I love like the ships of the original trilogy. The sequel trilogy ones can be cool, but the prequel trilogy ships are all so good in my opinion. From the smallest ships like the little speeders all the way up to like the big separatist ships. Like they're always so cool. And just the fact that they stole a separatist ship, like that's pretty awesome in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. We also got the High Republic Adventures issue number 6. This one is a new arc and it follows Court and Farzala, and they're actually like emissaries going to Nalhutta, which is the capital of the Hutt homeworld there. And well, they get there and things go really, really wrong. So that's a lot of fun. There's a lot of action in that one. There's a Drengir appearance. There's a name drop of Jabba the Hutt, so we know he exists about 200 years before we see him in A New Hope, so that's really freaking cool. Or actually, no, we see him in A Phantom Menace, so 200 years before that. And finally, we have the High Republic issue number 7, and that follows Keeve Trennis. She's haunted by the nightmares of the Drengir when she connected with the main Drengir over on one of the planets, and it features a Sith named Darth Krall, who is just in her mind, but I feel like he's going to play a larger factor going forward, even though he's just imaginary. And she does team up with a Jedi Wayseeker called Orla Jareni. For those of you that are not familiar, a Wayseeker is kind of a new type of Jedi that was introduced in the High Republic. Wayseekers, they're Jedi, but they're not in accordance with the Jedi Council on Coruscant. So they kind of go on their own. That's why they're the Wayseeker. They go on their own. They don't really report to anybody. They kind of follow the Force, like whatever the Force is calling to them, whether it be going to this planet, saving some lives, or just like studying the Force on some wayward planet out in the wild space, unknown regions, whatever. That's kind of who they are. So we get to basically introduce to this one character that is a Wayseeker. So there you go. We had those 3 comics. We had a brand new Star Wars novel. So there was a lot out this week. So go to your local comic stores, your local bookstores to check those items out. And we are going to get into our main topic for tonight. But before we do that, everybody watching live right now, go ahead, share this video to your buddies, to your friends. Let's get more of you in here on a weekly basis live, because it's always fun to chat with you guys in the comment section down below. We go live every Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern. If you guys are listening via podcast, come on over one of these weeks and join us. We have a lot of fun doing this show live. So as the title suggests, should CGI Luke be a focus in future Star Wars stories? This came to me, this idea, this topic, because we had the news and it was broken by the guy himself, this YouTuber. His name is Shamock. I'm hoping I pronounced that right.
Shamook.
Shamock. Okay. He did these deep fakes, which a lot of people claim that they looked better than what Lucasfilm put out. So apparently he came out on his YouTube channel and one of the comments replies, he's like, oh yeah, I've already been hired by Lucasfilm for months now, and I'm just getting settled in, and that's why I haven't been releasing a lot of YouTube comments or YouTube content lately, because I've been busy with like the full-time job now. So that leads me to believe that, hey, is Lucasfilm actually more confident in bringing Luke Skywalker to life once again, maybe with more hands? And this actually has more credence to it, because there was a poster that came out during the time of Comic-Con, which is all digital this year for San Diego Comic-Con, and it's of Grogu and Luke is like using the Force to hover a yellow crystal, as Grogu is also using the Force to like separate his like lightsaber hilt and all that stuff. So it's like, why would this be official if this is not in the cards for like season 3 or something of that nature? And how are they going to bring Luke alive? Are they going to recast him? Are they going to use CGI? Before we get into discussion, what are your reactions, Ben, to this just breaking out about, hey, they're actually going to hire like one of these fans to just do the work officially?
Well, before we get into like the big discussion of the whole topic of Luke, I think I can say, I've been really critical of Star Wars and Disney lately on how they've handled a lot of things. But I can say hats off to them for doing this because it really shows for them as a company, basically, they're being humble about it. They're basically saying, hey, you did it better than us. Why not just hire you? Like you sure you're a YouTuber and everything, but why not just hire you? Like if someone's out there doing it better than you are and you're a multi-billion-dollar company, why wouldn't you bring that talent on board? Because long term, it'll make you more and more money than what you potentially would have been if the guy's doing it better than you, which in my opinion, from what I saw, I can agree with some of those sentiments. So I really think it's a really good idea. And also it helps as well with like PR, I think, of like, hey, like their almost interactions with fans. Like, it's adding more to like, hey, we're not just ignoring what fans are saying. Like we're listening, like we're looking at feedback. And a lot of feedback when Shamock came out and released this cut of Luke. He also did a similar one with Han and Leia for Solo. And he that was like 6, 7, 8 months ago, etc. And a lot of fans back then were saying, oh, this is better than Mando, this is better than the Solo movie, etc., etc. So it's cool seeing Lucasfilm basically say, hey, have at it. Like, we agree. Like we'll be humble about it and we'll hire you. I like it. I like it a lot that they stepped up to the plate and did it.
Yeah, because there's been other things in the past where I feel like Lucasfilm hasn't handled certain situations with fan creators that great, where like they were trying to shut down certain things they were doing to just make waves. But in this case, they're completely embracing it, embracing the community, telling them, hey, you guys, you could actually be an asset to our team. That's awesome. Like this guy got hired by ILM, which is, man, that is like the highest prestige. If you're like going into visual effects and visual arts, like they have to be like the top, right? Like that, the fact that this guy got in there like that is awesome. And that really bodes well for any creator out there. Even if it isn't Star Wars, anything you do, people are watching it. These mega corporations are watching. People are always asking like, how do you get experience? How do you do this? How do you do that? Just do it on your own. Just do it on your own as best as you can without any restraints given to you. And have that creative freedom, and next thing you know, there's people watching. They can message you, and next thing you know, you could be doing it for a living rather than just as a hobby.
Well, Chris, did you see the guy? His title. It's not even like a lower level role. It's the title is a senior level position. It's like senior facial capture artist or something, and like. Being a senior level position, that means they were really impressed. Like, it's not like they were like, hey, we'll hire you as an intern or something. Like, they brought him right up into the ranks of ILM, which is crazy. And the fact, this guy was doing it with his, I'm sure he has a pretty good setup at home, his computer and everything. But just imagine what he'll be able to do with Lucasfilm's tech and budget.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. Have like unlimited resources at this point. Have the best technology, the best rendering technology, and unlimited hardware capabilities to be able to do that stuff even probably faster and more efficient than he could do on his own. So that's interesting. And that begs, that begs a question then is, should they do this? They have the funds to hire the people to do it. Now, should they go ahead and if they're bringing this guy on, I would assume that they have a lot more in the cards with digital creations like this. Maybe it would be more than just like one scene. Maybe they really are gonna just throw everything in a kitchen sink at this thing, to get this thing to be like almost like a main character or something of that degree.
Yep. Well, here's an interesting thing. If you go on Shamock's YouTube, like, up until he started posting recently, he stopped posting like early March. it was like late February, early March that he stopped posting. So that begs the question. Interesting thing. What show just recently wrapped filming late as of late? Book of Boba. Like, are we like maybe it wouldn't be Luke in the show, but what if they basically, what if they're gonna test a character out for the Book of Boba even and be like, hey, we'll try your skills out on this character that we've been working on. Like you come in and touch it up, and then we'll move on to the Luke stuff. And I feel like he's potentially been working on that. And also another thing to remember, this is under like ILM and Lucasfilm. And early on, a few months ago, there was all those different talks about potential flashbacks for Indiana Jones. So he could be working on Harrison Ford's facial stuff because he did that for Solo as well. He put Harrison Ford on Alden Ehrenreich for Solo, and he did a really good job at that. So it just begs the question, like, is he working on Indy as well?
Well, here's the thing. Book of Boba Fett, you're dealing with characters in the underworld. Han Solo, maybe there's a Han Solo in there. Maybe Alden Ehrenreich plays Han Solo, and they just touch up his face a little bit with this guy to make it look like it's Harrison Ford post Return of the Jedi. Keep this keep Alden Ehrenreich's voice, keep obviously his gestures and everything, because they're perfect. I love how he portrayed Han Solo, but and that's the thing where I wouldn't want to recast. I wouldn't want Alden to play Han after Return of the Jedi, but what happens if we could actually make his face look more like Harrison Ford? They could do like a morph, like they could do like a mix between the two, so it's not like overly done, but at least you could tell more. I mean, that would be something, because he's already has direct experience working with that same face already. Why not?
Yep.
And Alden Ehrenreich's been very quiet. What's the last thing we've heard him in? He could have been on the set the whole time. We don't even know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a possibility with him. And then the interesting thing, so I went back and I was looking at some of Shamock's content on his deepfakes for Star Wars. And like for the Luke scene, he commented in the comment section that, obviously if you watch his version of it, the mouth is off. But he said the reason why, in his comments, he responded to a fan or a subscriber, and he said the reason why his mouth was off compared to the original, of course, was, he was able to do such a good job with Luke. And if he had the original source file, so whatever the original file was from Mando season 2 in the finale, if he had the original file, he would have been able to put Luke's mouth on the character just fine, and it would have looked seamless, basically. So that's the only reason on some of those deep fakes you see from him, the mouths may look a little bit off, but he said it's just because he doesn't have the actual original raw file to work with for the software to be able to basically to seamlessly like edit it into the deep fake.
Okay. And I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't actually looked at his deep fake yet, so I should have before recording this podcast, but I definitely got to try to make a priority now, because again, we always get to that conversation of that uncanny valley effect where it's like, it can't be possible, so your mind is going to look for that little tiny imprecise detail, whether it be the muscles in the jaw not 100% correct, or the moisture in the eyes, something like that, where your mind's going to be. And my mind doesn't work that way. I just accept it as it is. Like, this is Luke Skywalker. But I know that is a criticism for many friends of mine that just didn't like it at all when they seen it in Mandalorian. They were actually taken out of the experience, and they couldn't really relish in the fact that Luke Skywalker made a heroic return, because they were sitting there questioning, scratching their head, like, why does this not look right the whole time? I'm happy and selfish that I didn't have to go through that issue. I was totally sold. I was in tears watching that whole point of the show. So that was not a factor for me, but I know for a lot of people, unfortunately, it was. So, is it worth doing this? But then you have people like me, where if they just recasted somebody like Sebastian Stan, I'm going to be like instantly like, this is not the Luke Skywalker that I know. This is not Mark Hamill. This is somebody else, Yeah.
Well, here's the fun thing for you, Chris. So when you look, this is how drastic of a difference I can say I noticed with Shamook's cut of the Mando sequence with Luke. If I had to compare the original to what he did, his looks way the original. The original looks like a video game cutscene compared to what he did. Like
Really?
his, yep, 100%. Like if you look at them side by side, like he has them in the video side by side. Like the original looks like a video game cutscene compared to like what he did. It looks however he did it. Like I'm not sure 100% how deepfake things work, but it looks it looks very similar to Luke in Return of the Jedi. Like it really, really does. Like if you just don't focus on the mouth, of course, but like he said, it's just because he doesn't have the original file from the original cut, so that's why. But if you don't pay attention to that, like the actual like the eyes and the facial structure, it looks almost like right off Return of the Jedi set. Like it looks so good, and I've seen different breakdowns on how he did it. And it's interesting because if you look when you compare both the Mando version, like there are some more details, like so like the hair and stuff you can see a little bit, like you can see like the hair more like individually, like the little strands of hair, etc. But on Shamook's version, the way he did it, it's interesting. Like as an artist, he basically almost put almost like a blur or whatever to like the hair and some of like the outer portions, and he actually has like a focus on Luke's face for his version. Like it's not like he's hiding it. So it's really interesting, like looking at his version compared to
Oh
the
wow, I'm
Mando
watching it.
version.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now. It is quite a
Yeah,
big difference. Like I know what you
yeah,
mean.
like I
Like looking at the original, like I watched it to take the photo of the thumbnail.
yeah,
I was taking the thumbnail photo for this image, and I'm like, oh wow, like this looks really good because I had nothing to compare it to, but now I have something to compare it to. It's like, oh wow, like the lighting looks a lot better. It looks a lot more natural to me.
yeah. I think also another thing we have to keep in mind when we're discussing this, we're looking at this as a lens of like 2021. By the time we would see more, like potentially if we see like, let's all for intents and purposes say a Luke and Grogu show at some point, like by the time we would get to that, the technology will be advanced even more. And when we're comparing it again, it's just the whole thing of this guy was doing this at home with his, probably $3,000 or $4,000 computer system. Like Lucasfilm, their computer systems are probably millions of dollars of technology they have there. So, it's just interesting. It's just really interesting seeing how he's going to potentially do it with Luke. And again, also, it really does make me wonder as well, like, what if there's the outside shot? What if we get Luke in Book of Boba? Like, what if he's toward the end of it for some reason or another? Like, because, like I said, if you look at his comment sections, like if you look at his upload schedule, like like he stopped uploading. It was around early March, late February. Like, that's Book of Boba was in the heat of filming then.
Wow, I'm watching the Han Solo one now, and it's blowing my mind with how close Alden Ehrenreich's facial structure like matches Han's or
Yep.
matches Harrison's, and it's just like they could literally get away with this thing for the Book of Boba Fett. Put him and
Well,
Chewie in
Chris,
there in
now,
like a quick cameo, you know? And
yep.
the thing
Now
is
on top of that,
hold on, with Han Solo
okay.
in post Return of the Jedi, he actually has a beard too. So if Alden grows a beard, like it would make it even more believable because then you have like half the face is just like obscured, like you're not used to seeing Han with a beard anyway. So
Yep. Yep, and pull up the Leia one as well while you're watching it. The Leia one is definitely from Rogue One, their version of Leia in Rogue One, which I thought the Leia in Rogue One wasn't great. His version definitely looks a lot better than that. Um, so it's just this guy's talented, and I cannot wait to see what he can do with Luke.
yeah, yeah. Um, so I mean that's the thing is like a lot of people are on the hill of oh I only want to have Luke Skywalker in animation. And I kind of still am on that thought where it's like, at least if we have Luke Skywalker in animation, like Clone Wars S, like let that be like the next show after Bad Batch, just like Luke Skywalker, Grogu, Ben Solo at the Academy, doing their thing, and then there's like no problems there. There you have Mark
Yep.
Hamill voicing Luke, and nobody could ever have those little weird critiques.
Yeah, that's true, but I think we need to go full steam ahead on the Luke live action animation deepfake thing. Like, just because you can work around it as well. Because how often, even in Mando, I mean, then again, I guess that's hard to compare because Mando's wearing a helmet. But um, how often, like in Mando or even in the Star Wars movies, like how often is the camera really deadpan focused on a character's face? Like, we're getting action sequences, we're getting characters moving around, the scenes where Luke has his face focused in on, like, they can really work on it, and then you can, use some camera angles to work around it, and obviously with Luke, you'd be cutting to Grogu quite a bit for all of his like, just little um, funny different like body language, pieces of body language and such. So like, I think you could really work with it. But I think for now, we'll be seeing Luke and Grogu in more of a like guest appearance type role until they get it honed in. Because I think the way it's going to go with those two is like if we see them in Book of Boba or Mando season 3 or Ahsoka or whatever, they'll appear as guests, and that's how Lucasfilm I think is going to judge. Like, okay, here's, they're basically going to use Shamock, have him make a version of Luke for like Mando or Boba or Ahsoka, and basically put it out there as a tester for the fans, I think, just to see what people react and think, that version versus the Mando season 2 version.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just to basically just test the waters. And if people don't like it, then they could reel it back in and go, hey, this was still a cameo, so we could still cast if we want to, if we would want to.
Well, they
So I
got that
think,
special coming up next month. The making
yep,
of, the Luke Skywalker scene. What's to say? Maybe they don't test the waters, be like that, and at the end of the whole thing, they'd be like, "Hey, we brought in this expert at this creation tool, and here's what he's done already with what Luke," and like show a comparison with like his actual file and the mouth moving correctly, and like you
yep.
said, they can gauge it and be like, "Hey, do we want to do this because, you know." Mando season 3 is not even filmed yet, so they could still like make that decision, like just cut him out of the story or just hire somebody to just play him, I guess, or something.
Oh yeah, I think that's the way they could do it. Um, and I think we're going in an interesting direction because let's say if this does go over really well with Luke, who knows, this guy could spearhead a lot of new things with Star Wars. Like, Luke's just the first character of potentially many. Like, you know, with saving the here's one to throw out there. Andor series. He could make a Tarkin for the Andor series. Um,
Yeah, I'm pretty
that's
sure they probably already have one at this point. If it's all about that,
that's
I'm sure he's going to
that's
be in
true.
there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, that also leads to the slippery slope that we've been trying, at least I've been hoping they've been trying to get away from, is like, let's steer away from the original trilogy. We've had 40 something years of that. Let's start getting new stories. And if they get this technology down, they're going to be like, oh, let's just keep bringing you guys Han, Luke, and Leia forever, which is great and all, but it's like, I'd rather see resources put to other things, unless they, do like a Shadows of the Empire reboot, and then I'll be like, okay, that was worth it.
yep, yeah. It's a tough thing. It's a tough line to walk right now because, like you said, put resources elsewhere, or is it just expand on the stories? Because, then again, I could look at it from this direction as well. The sequel trilogy basically skipped all of like Han, Luke, and Leia's adventures leading up to Episode 7, like on screen. Based because the sequels, they were about Rey, Finn, and Poe, and Kylo. So maybe they can use this deepfake technology and like the Mandoverse era to basically fill out the, like, of course we have stuff through comics and books and things like that, which are great, but like to fill out more of it on screen as well, to fill out that timeline. And then once the whole Mando verse thing wraps up, wherever it wraps up, which I think that's going to end up being in a movie to be the big grand finale of everything. But whenever it does wrap up, then I think that's when we move on from it, because we'll have Mandoverse wrapped up, we'll presumably have Kenobi and Andor wrapped up, and then we'll be on to the Acolyte and whatever these other projects are that are going on at Lucasfilm, whether it be the Taika Waititi movie or the Kevin Feige movie, wherever those movies land, maybe they land either like the High Republic era, or they land in post Episode 9 era, like Rogue Squadron is.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, I mean, I will give them that. Like, if they actually make stories with Luke, Han, and Leia post Return of the Jedi, it'll be worth it. But if they keep mining that territory during, between A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, then I'll start getting a little angry, because I'm like, we already know where that leads to. At least with the post sequel, post Return of the Jedi, there's 30-year gap. Like, there could have been an entire war that takes place. There probably will be an entire war that takes place, but they've just been always so cagey about that era, because they've had things planned, but they don't know quite what it was like 6-7 years ago. But they're like, let's just leave that off limits. You read all the books, it's like the books go as far as like 3 years after Return of the Jedi, 2 or 3 years, and then they don't start up again until like 4 or 5 years before Force Awakens. So there's literally like 23, 25 years of just nothingness out there for them to have like a nice window. Because that's like the whole Dark Times, that window right there, that going from Revenge of the Sith to New Hope is the 19-year gap. And we've seen so far how much content they've been able to mine out of that. I mean, we're still getting series that are based in that era. We got Rebels first. Now we have Bad Batch, which is set right off the heels of Revenge of the Sith. It's like crazy. So imagine even more time in between those two trilogies. It's going to be even more content. So yeah, I'm all for that. It's just, it has to be done correctly. I hope they have absolute faith that this will go down correctly. I know Mandalorian uses the Unreal Engine 4, which is what they use for a lot of video games right now. And they just put out Unreal Engine 5. And if you guys take a look, they have a couple tech tests of Unreal Engine 5. They haven't made any games with that yet, because that engine just got released. But it's unbelievable. There's like billions of polygons. It's like just insane how much stuff. So I'm sure that Lucasfilm is already using that tech in conjunction with the CGI, which they didn't have last year because it just came out. So I'm pretty positive that with the Unreal Engine 5, this stuff is going to even more trick their brain into making it seem like a reality. So,
Oh yeah, for sure. And one more thing about this Luke story and Shamook story, I think a really cool part about it, like a meta part of it, is this. So Shamook, he's innovating. He made a Luke and a Solo and a Han and a Leia pretty much better than what Lucasfilm did. And I think the cool part about all of that is just the fact that, like, that is one of the most George Lucas things, like, we've had. Like, someone, being a creative, innovating. Like, that was Lucas's big thing with Star Wars, with his filmmaking in before Star Wars, like THX 1138, things like that. Like, I think it's just so cool seeing somebody who's so innovative getting actually hired by the company like that George Lucas founded. Like, I think that's so cool. It's just a cool, like, almost meta connection. Like, he was such an innovator, and then you have this guy who's innovating Lucas's original character. Like, I just think it's great.
yeah, there you go. That's the classic Star Wars story right there in a nutshell. So yeah, we would like to hear your guys' thoughts. Let us know on Twitter. Let us know in the comment section down below if you're watching this video after the fact. What are your thoughts on CGI Luke and what that could mean for the future of Star Wars stories with other characters being brought into CGI? In fact, what characters would you guys like to see giving the Luke Skywalker treatment? Let us know in the comment section down below. Moving along, so we got a little bit of video game kind of updates that I do want to mention because it's been a couple weeks. E3 has basically come and gone, and we have gotten zilch, zero, nada when it comes to Star Wars AAA development games. We know that EA is working on some iteration of the Jedi Fallen Order series. In fact, they said it was going to be a franchise. EA Play was last week, and they let us know a week before it came out that, a week before EA Play came out, that there will be no Star Wars presence, but we'll celebrate with you guys next year. That's just simple enough terms. We're going to see that at Celebration next year in May. Pretty sure that's how it was phrased. But it just begs the question of, like, for EA specifically, like, EA, ever since they made the deal with Disney in 2014, 2015, whatever year it was, they've been consistently at least telling us what's coming. Even if they didn't have any trailer or cool, like, behind the scenes reel or anything like that. Like, there was that one year where they announced Jedi Fallen Order, and it was just like they brought the mic to Vince Zampella, the CEO of Respawn Entertainment, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm making a Star Wars game, and he just sent out a quick blurb in the audience, like, after Revenge of the Sith, you're a Jedi Padawan, did complete training, blah blah blah. Like, we didn't even get that this year, so that is a little bit alarming for me, because this is literally the first time that EA has been radio silent on anything at all. I mean, last year we got Star Wars Squadrons. They were able to put that game out during a pandemic. So, and then in the year before that was Jedi Fallen Order. Then we had Battlefront 2 in 2017, and the original Battlefront 2015 then. So it's just a little bit kind of worrisome, because at this moment in time, Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga is supposed to come out this year. Even though we did get a reveal release date last year for October, and they wiped it clean real quick off the Star Wars show. They re-uploaded the whole video without it. Very sketchy, very weird. And we got Squadrons instead. So everybody assumed, and we still assume because they still say it's slated for this year, and we go all of E3 without any word. But back in spring, they did say officially, like, oh, we are not coming out this spring. It's like, duh, we're in spring now. Of course it's not out right now. If you don't have a release date, they got to get pre-orders. They got to give a couple months time for people to pre-order. And that's where we stand right now, going into August, and we still don't know anything particularly about it. And I know, Ben, that you shared me a story specifically about one of the developers leaving, I believe, TT Games, and he made a couple comments. What did he say about the game?
Yeah, so he pretty much described working on the Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga, as both fun and miserable. And basically what he was saying was it basically sounded like the game was really tedious to make for the developers. So it's like, I don't know, it's really cryptic, but, he says it was really fun working on it, because pretty much it's basically the kind of like the company line of, like, it was really fun working on it because it was a Star Wars project type of deal, So I don't know. It just, to me, I'm so pessimistic at this point about Star Wars Lego. Like, I just, like you said, it was supposed to come out last year. I was so hyped about it all last year leading up to October. I was like, oh, we're going to get it or whatever. And then didn't happen. And then I was like, oh, maybe we'll get it for the holiday season, like December. And then it was like, didn't happen. And then, and then, like, even, I believe it was either December. It was right around when Mando was ending, or it might have been in January of this year. Star Wars, on their Instagram, they posted a clip from the game, actually. And it said, like, explore however many worlds, however many characters, blah, 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 blah. And it showed a little, like, 10-second clip of C-3PO riding a bantha through Mos Eisley. And then it's still nothing. And it's like, what is going on with this game? It's like, are we ever going to see it? Like, are we going to get to a point where they're just going to push it all the way to Celebration next year and basically say, hey, it's coming out next holiday season, next year of 22?
It's just very weird. Like, what happened between now and last October when the game was supposedly finished enough to have a release date? Did they just say, oh, since Squadrons is coming out this year, we'll let them have their chance to shine. We'll come out the next year. And I guess in the meantime, they might have been like, oh, since we have time, we're gonna do a bunch of new stuff while we have the time. And I guess maybe that, like, broke the game.
Well,
because it
Chris,
seems like people are, I don't know.
I have some, like, Like, I mean, this is like turn on the speculation bell type thing. But okay, one of the things though the guy said, the developer specifically mentioned though, was it was hard working on like the episode 9 portion of the game. So it makes me wonder. So like the game was set to come out last year. So how long like, I mean, you're in like into gaming and things. How long does it usually take for a company to make a game? So like when would have they, if it was supposed to come out in 2020, when would have they started on this?
Probably at least 2018. I mean,
Okay,
at
so
least two
see what
years, 3 years
what
usually.
what may yeah, so what makes me wonder is, like I said, the guy specifically mentioned episode 9. So it makes me wonder, could there be a connection to, the almost mismanagement that happened with episode 9? Like you heard the different things about Colin Trevorrow and JJ, and like the different things with like some of Daisy Ridley's comments pretty much saying they didn't know who Rey's parents were going into episode 9, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, could have they been developing a game in like 2018 or so, and that actually not be like, could have they developed basically, whatever script was happening at the time? Could have they been developing that game, and then it basically turned out not to be that movie, not to be what happened in the theaters, and basically Star Wars was like, hey, reset this game because this isn't the movie.
Yeah, but I mean, you're
I don't
comparing
know.
October for that was almost a whole year after the Rise of Skywalker. You would have thought by now like Lucasfilm would have caught that way before it even have any semblance of a release date. Like I just
Yeah,
feel like they would be
I
better
don't
than that
know.
to have a hand. I don't know. It's a whole conundrum. All I know is that developers are leaving, which is not a great sign considering we don't have a release date yet. So, because then they gotta recruit more people, and I don't know. We'll keep you updated on that. But that wasn't the only game that's slated this year. We also had Star Wars Rivals, which is it was announced during a Nintendo Direct, I think last year or early this year. And that's going to have, like arena style shooter battle thing after Return of the Jedi. I don't think it's gonna have a whole lot of story. It will be available on Android and iOS. It'll be crossplay, so it's more like a battle game. So like I don't know. I think of it more as a mobile game. I can't really say because we haven't seen anything about it, which is also kind of cautiously interesting because it's supposed to be out this year. And they were like, oh, we're going to show you some stuff this summer. I signed up for the beta and all that kind of thing. And absolutely nothing. Um, Now, there's maybe hope that they'll show off Lego Star Wars or this at Gamescom, which is a big convention that they hold out over there in Germany every year. And that's like the end of the summer game season. They have E3 that kicks things off in June, and then Gamescom kind of quietly comes, well, not quietly, but closes thing down for the summer. And Jeff Keighley is going to have some big like opening night event. I'm not going to hold my breath, but maybe it would appear something on that stage that day when they announce like all these other games coming out. Maybe that's when I would do it. And if they don't have a date for, especially Lego Star Wars Saga, if they don't have a date by like the end of August, I don't think it's coming out this year. Because like I said, they have to give enough time for people to get their pre-orders in and all that stuff. And I just don't see them having enough time to promote and market the game in like a month and a half to 2 months when it's like a AAA game like that. So yeah, I don't know, guys, but the time is ticking on these games. The only thing that I mean, the thing that's happy for me that I'm happy about is I did see an update from ILM X Labs. They do have the next part of Tales from the Galaxy's Edge VR game. There's another part to that coming out this year. They're going to talk more about it next month. And then, like I said before, we also have that new Star Wars, The Old Republic, Legends of the Sith expansion coming out in December. So I know I'm getting some kind of Star Wars content, but it's not the Star Wars content that we were all kind of promised at the beginning of this year, which is no matter how you slice it, it's disappointing. But that's how the game industry is. Sometimes things just fall through the cracks. I mean, look at all the games that we've seen come and gone announced by EA, whether it be the Ragtag game with the survivors of Alderaan after the events of A New Hope, or there was the 1313 game that had nothing to do with anything recent, but that was canceled. We had the other game, Vancouver EA was making like an open world game, but at least we know we got an open world game coming officially. But again, that's like way off. But as far as this year is concerned, basically the long story short, this is not going to be anything that we know for sure right now of what we're getting this year. So, yeah, we'll keep you updated on that stuff as well going forward.
Oh
Getting
yeah.
into our, yeah, you have something to say on it?
Go ahead. Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna segue into the next one here.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
All right, so we got new details on Galactic Starcruiser. So we talked, I think, last week or the week before about Galactic Starcruiser. They had, it's the hotel that's opening up in Disney World. We have a solid window. It's going to be opening up in the spring of 2022. So a little bit closer than I expected. So it's a little bit less than a year at this point that this thing's going to be opening up. Which is interesting because that means it's going to be opening up around the time of Star Wars Celebration, which would be happening at the other end of the country. Fascinating stuff right there. But there was a roundtable video. It's almost about 19 minutes long. There wasn't a whole lot of new information that I didn't already know from the other articles. It's on the Disney Parks blog. You guys can find that video there. It has a lot of the leadership that's involved with putting this thing together. But the main things that I noticed, I'm going to just run through a list of things that I gathered notes when I was listening to this, watching this. It's going to be a mandatory 2 days, 2 nights stay. So it's not like a one night or you can't extend it to like 3 or 4 days. It's very curated to the fact that this thing is going to be more of an intimate experience where I've never been to Galaxy's Edge yet. I'm hoping to go in May when I go to Star Wars Celebration. But, they have like little story events that happen, Kylo Ren walking around and Rey looking around and having you go on scavenger hunts, stuff like that, where they can't do a whole lot because you're dealing with massive amounts of crowds. So when you're in Batuu, from my knowledge, it's like just a very casual environment. Yeah, you can role play if you want to, but it's a little bit harder when there's that many people around. Whereas with Galactic Starcruiser, it sounds like they are going all in with the story. And what's really neat is they actually created the story for Galactic Starcruiser in coordinates with Galaxy's Edge. They've been developing this hotel for like over 5 years now. So that kind of shocked me with how long they've been making this, and they've been making the stories in tandem. So we have 2 attractions at Galaxy's Edge. We have Smuggler's Run and we have the Rise of Resistance ride, and they both have very linear kind of stories, point A, point B. And apparently, you get these excursions when you go to the hotel, so you're able to kind of plan your day around. Okay, we're gonna go to Batuu, we're gonna go, and by the way, they have these like cool, like they had concept art for like what the transports will look like from the inside. So it's probably like a big van in reality, but when you get inside the van, it's like you think you're in a ship. It's like, oh, there's our transport, it's gonna go to Batuu, and then you arrive there. But anyway, they are going to kind of bookend the missions in Galaxy's Edge if you're a member of Galactic Starcruiser. So they'll be like, hey, you have to make this cargo run for this NPC character that exists in real life, and this is why. So they're going to give you like way more story beats that thread through your travels through Galaxy's Edge on your excursions, stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool. But the nice thing is too, like, people that aren't like uber into the RPG realm of like doing this in reality, they're saying like this is going to be an experience you could just chill. Like, you don't have to like put the costume on. You don't have to know every little book that came out with Star Wars or anything like that. You could treat this as a very casual experience, and they're going to make it kind of welcoming and sort of introductory to the point of view where it's like anybody, even like the casual fan, could really relish in this, and they could go take a nap in their room at any point. They don't have to do any of this stuff, but it just seems like you pay the pretty penny on this thing. I'm gonna get as much as I can out of this. I'm gonna be sitting there talking to the people like, oh yeah, and I'm gonna bring up specific events like, oh yeah, in the Galaxy's Edge book, remember when V Marathi went over here and there was Captain Cardinal? They'll be like, oh yeah, that was that time when that happened. So I'm gonna be quizzing these people. It's gonna be pretty interesting when it comes to this. But one thing they did detail is the way that you can kind of get absorbed into this. And they're giving examples like, hey, if you want to be a Twi'lek, that's awesome. We'll spray paint you blue. We'll give you Leku. You can go around and act like you're, just like you're part of Star Wars. And I'm like, oh, that's bringing so many ideas to my head. Like I want to be like a smuggler Twi'lek, green Twi'lek, walking around with like a blaster hanging from my side, kind of like Han Solo Twi'lek version. It's something cool like that. And I'm gonna just sort of lose myself. But they're also talking about the unique food. There's gonna be food that's also from Galaxy's Edge, I guess. But obviously they're gonna make their own like really cool. They were talking like themes from different planets. Like they're gonna have like a Mustafarian kind of like lava type of meal, and they're gonna have like an actual live performance in the Corellian place or whatever place you go to eat your food. They're gonna have a singer, and the singer might be like giving you a mission, like after her performance, being like, "Oh yeah, I'm trying to smuggle in this crate or something." So that could be like a little mission that you're going on. So it really seems like the way I was listening, like this is like the most immersive thing in Star Wars will ever actually do, besides actually like acting out a scene on a soundstage somewhere. This is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, I thought when you sent me that video, I checked it out. I thought that was it's just so cool. Like you said, that was the main word I came out of it with, immersive. Like this is such a crazy immersive experience. Like like you said, whether you're just a casual fan or like a hardcore fan, like everybody's welcome. There's an integrated story. It's like the Disney Parks cinematic universe, basically. um, but like it's crazy how well they're connecting things. Like, that was one of the big emphasis of when Star Wars basically did like the canon reset. Like, they're going to start connecting everything. And now they're even connecting their parks. Like, I think it's just such a cool idea. And it's just so neat seeing how they're going to, do different things. Like you said, the Twilight thing, that's really neat. The unique food, the unique experiences, like you said, going on missions. And I really it'll be interesting to see once the whole like transport concept gets done. Like that'll be really cool just to see what the inside look of that ends up being. And it'll be interesting to see like if your driver is like in like pilot apparel and stuff. Like, I'm sure they'll have that, and it'll just it'll be a really really cool experience for people to go there. One thing, like you said, it is going to be a very pretty penny going to this Starcruiser. Like it's definitely not going to be a cheap stay, and as you mentioned, it's blocked off in 2-day increments basically. So it's going to be very structured, I feel like, where potentially you're not going to be like overrun with crowds because it's a 2-day limit. So you're going to be getting it's you're going to have a schedule. So it's going to be really interesting seeing how they shuffle people in and out, and just how they do everything, because I'm not sure if I missed the capacity of it, but depending on the capacity, it'll it'll definitely be interesting to see how it all flows. As we talked about in the prior podcast, like I think it will be a little clunky at first to start until they get into the swing of things of how how it runs. But I feel like once they get it going, it'll just move like clockwork.
Yeah. And you said like, oh yeah, it'll be a pretty penny to go there, but like the fact that there's almost like a replayability version, like in another video game you would play, like, oh, you go
Yep.
dark side, you go light side, because like they were saying, like to the degree of like, oh, you could like basically work for the First Order to a certain degree. Like you could take like a mission from like a First Order officer or something like that. And I know for a fact because they have the post that they released last week, and there's somebody in like First Order attire. So
Yep.
like you can go as a First Order guy one time, and then go the next time as a Jedi and walk
Yep.
around, and then like have a completely different experience, because then all the people that are sympathetic to the First Order are probably going to give you dirty looks and probably going to just like not give you the missions that they might give somebody else that's like sympathetic to the First Order. So even though it might cost like $2,000-3,000, it's like crap. I want to go multiple times because I kind of want to have a different experience and see how that goes from that point of view.
Oh yeah, well because they don't want people to come one time and then go, well, checked it off the list. I don't need to go back. So it's a good way to do things. And, sure, like you said, it's expensive, but it makes it way more fun for the fans because if you go one time and it's the same experience every time, like sure, you could go back or whatever, but the chance that it could, you can change things up when you go back, that'll make it way more enticing because then it'll be a different, like you said, it's like a video game replayability.
Yeah, so that is Galactic Starcruiser. I'm still gonna probably just try to buy a ticket day one no matter what happens. As long as my credit card can take the charge it's gonna be on that first go around. We'll see what happens. We'll see who's willing to come and split the bill with me because I'm definitely not paying for that by myself. But we'll see. We'll see. Because I know if I don't buy it, if you don't buy this thing right away, it's gonna be sold out for like 3-4 years straight without a chance of getting there again. So we shall see. I'm sure they're gonna have like different contests. Hey, you could win a room to Galactic Star Cruiser and crazy ass thing. Um, so stay with us for more updates on your favorite Disney park. So getting into our last main topic of the night before we get into our Bad Batch review, we have some more updates on the High Republic. We just got the Comic-Con panel last week, and this week we had the High Republic show for the fourth one that they've put out. The main thing I took away from this one is they revealed basically all the Jedi Council members that are sitting on the council during the events of the books we're reading right now. So I'll just run through very quick. Some of these names might sound familiar to you, and you can go ahead on StarWars.com and check out all the awesome concept art that is done for each one of these characters. So, of course, we have Yoda. We have this character named LaRue. We have Pratri Vater. We have the character of Keaton Murag. We also have a human character of Ada Lee Caro. We have another human character of Terry Rizazan. We also have this snake creature that you guys might recognize from Phantom Menace, Oppa Rancis, or Oppa Rancisis. We have this really cool character that stood out to me. It's a Yukaren, like the yak face character, but it's a female variant, and her name is Adempo. We also have a Duros alien on the council. Her name is Rana Kant, which actually I believe that she was the master of Selen Geos, and she passes away at some point. Yarl Poof, there you go. That's the character that everybody recognizes, a really long neck guy from Phantom Menace. We also have Jorah Mali. She has a very short stay in the High Republic books. That's all the Jedi Council members. For those of you that want to know what the heck Porter Engel, the Blade of Bardata, looks like, we finally have an official image, and this guy looks like some kind of twisted version of Santa Claus, and that's probably the best way I could describe him. He's got very white, pale skin, big old jolly kind of grayish whitish beard, but he does have a patch on his eye with a scar, so he looks like a badass Santa to me. Besides that, we got some like cover reveals, variant cover reveals for upcoming comics, but in a separate story we got was the full audio drama cast for Tempest Runner. This is going to be the next like big High Republic release. This comes out the end of August 31st. So I will run through this list of people. Maybe you guys recognize some of these names because I certainly do. So we have Jessica Almasi as Lorna D. We have Dan Bittner as Counselor Riddick. We have Orla Cassidy as Ola Hest. We have Sullivan Jones. By the way, Sullivan Jones, he is the awesome narrator for the Shatterpoint Mace Windu audiobook that got released, that was re-recorded for the new Essential Legends collection. That guy's awesome. He's playing the part of Bala. Looking forward to seeing how he plays that character. We also have January Lavoy as Tassia. We have Kathleen McKinnery as Counselor Fry. We have Tara Sands as Seston. We have Vicus Adam as H709 and Raleigh. We have Jonathan Davis. Now that's a name that rings a bell, right?
Yep.
He's been around the block when it comes to Star Wars audiobooks, from what I can understand. Yeah, so he plays Andric Keller and Asgar Rowe. Asgar Rowe is the father of Markion Rowe. So that's going to be cool to hear what he sounds like. We also have Neil Hellingers as Kassav, Yuria D, which I'm guessing is some kind of parent of Lorna D, and Jano, new character there. We also have Saskia Marveliad as Avar Kriss and Par. So Avar Kriss, one of the main characters in the High Republic, even though there really aren't main characters, there's just a bunch of side characters, but she's one of the most prominent characters. So I'm very interested to see or hear what she actually sounds like and have that image in my head as I'm reading the comics. We also have Sonella Nankini as Keeve Trennis and Muglan. Again, Keeve Trennis, a very prominent character through Cavan Scott's comics. Can't wait to hear what she sounds like. And of course, we have Mark Thompson, renowned aficionado and just awesome all-around narrator for the Star Wars books. He's playing three characters. He's playing Pan Etta, who is this big Duatin Tempest that we all know and love to hate this character. We also have Skier, who is a Trandoshan, so I can't wait to see how he spits out those S's when he's pronouncing his words. And he is playing Markion Ro, which is arguably the biggest bad guy in all of the High Republic. And finally, we have Shannon Teo as Nibasek, who is a Jedi Master, as well as Quinn. So, and I do mention here, it's a full score and sound effects, taking full advantage of this audio original form. I can't wait to freaking listen to this thing. I don't think there's been a single audio drama that has had this large of a cast. This will be the third one they do in Star Wars canon. I'm hoping that they just kind of sweep it under the rug that there's an original score for the High Republic and it gets released when this comes out, because I want this to be like, you know, the old school Shadows of the Empire. They gave us the comics, the books, the video game. All we need now is a soundtrack. Just give us a High Republic soundtrack out of the blue with this thing. I think that'd be fantastic, like an original score. So we'll see about that. So yeah, I know. So you recognize some of these names, right?
Oh yeah. Like, you know, John Davis, like he's done quite a bit of things. Mark Thompson, he's the best in my opinion for like Star Wars audiobooks in general. Like he's great. And, you know, as you said, the big thing I feel like, or the most important thing I feel like when it comes to audiobooks, like, you know, sure, me and Milton, we prefer audiobooks and stuff, but the big thing I've always loved with audiobooks is they put a voice to the character. Like, that's one of the biggest parts that I enjoy. Like, it actually puts a voice to the character. So then, you know, in future, like, potential readings, whether it's, you know, a comic or a normal book, etc., now you'll finally have a voice with the character that you're listening to. Because, you know, like, sure, when we read books that take place in the normal Saga films, of course we're hearing like Harrison Ford's voice when we're reading Han, or, you know, things like that. But characters outside of that we haven't seen on screen before, it's really cool seeing or hearing different voice actors play or read these characters' parts, because now it's finally putting your voice to the character. So it's really interesting, and I love audiobooks. I think they're great.
Yeah, and it begs the question too. There was a rumor, I think even before the High Republic started, must have been in 2019, that there could be like an animated High Republic show in the works. So
Yep.
this automatically gets the gears in my head spinning, like, okay, if these guys are the voices, would they perhaps be a voice in the animated version or the animated counterpart show? And, you know, would this be what Keeve Trennis sounds like? Would this be what Markion Ro sounds like? Would this be Avar Kriss, you know, Lorna D, etc.? So I'm going to be paying very close attention to this, and I hope this is not the only High Republic audio drama. And that's a cool thing. The audio drama, they do have a little bit more production value than your typical audiobook. The audiobooks usually have just one narrator that does several of the voices, whereas this has, like, basically each character has their own unique person voicing them. So it really almost sounds more like the radio dramas, or, you know, like an actual play that was just recorded.
Oh yeah, that's, you know, hey, to connect back to my week in Star Wars, like, even the A New Hope radio drama I mentioned, or I'm listening to, every single character is a different actor. Like, there's not one actor that's like that's revoiced. Like, you don't have like Bale playing Lord Tyon or things like that. Like, it's literally different actors for each character. So it's just really interesting that they're bringing back more of these dramas like this. So, hopefully we start getting more, or hopefully they pick up in popularity more, just because then we'll get more and more potential just for more audio dramas. Like, now we have this in High Republic, and then, what begs the question, like, hey, what if for one of these future shows, like say, hey, if they're doing a second season of Bad Batch, what if they do an audio drama with the Bad Batch and you just have the main cast of the Bad Batch record a book? Like, that would be great, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I like the medium. I feel like we don't get enough of content in this medium,
Yep.
but it feels so special whenever I get the audio dramas. They've been consistently out one a year for the last, this will be the third year now. It's just nice
Yep.
to just sit here where I am right now. It's usually where I sit down, listen to them. I turn off everything. I just kind of close my eyes sometimes and just let it like come over me as far as like just the sound and the voices and the music and just like imagine like the scene happening in my head. It's just a lot of fun. I enjoy that. So it's definitely something I treasure, and I'm looking forward to August 31st when I get to do just that, when I experience Tempest Runner from Cavan Scott, who is writing this. And this is where we tell you guys that we are issuing a spoiler alert, because this is going to be getting into our final discussion for the night for the Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 14, War-Mantle. Now, you guys know the last couple episodes might have been a little bit hard to bear with us being a little bit curmudgeon-y on the Bad Batch recently. Well, I'm happy to say that I think I know for a fact that we're going to be talking a little bit more positive about the show this week. So if you guys haven't watched it, come back, listen to this, watch this later. We are going to get into full spoiler territory. There's some really cool, tantalizing stuff that happens in this episode. And this episode is all about the Bad Batch. They're responding to an emergency beacon on this forested planet that I got tricked. I thought it was going to be Endor, man. I seen those trees. I said, holy crap, is this some secret Palpatine facility somewhere? Well, it turns out that is not actually. That's called Daros or something. We'll talk about that more specifically. But they go there and they find out that War-Mantle happens to be centered around the secret Imperial facility that has Republic commandos leading around stormtroopers. And basically, going back real quick, I should have mentioned this, that Rex gave them the mission. Rex looks like he's in a little bit of trouble. One of his buddies is basically captured. So they go in there. It's kind of like a seek and rescue mission. And they get Gregor. It happens to be Gregor. And he tells them all what's been happening. And they have a very hot pursuit by several V-Wings and Republic gunships. And unfortunately, Hunter falls out of this thing and gets captured. Ends up with Crosshair finding him there. And that's pretty much where the episode ended. So I'll start things off for my initial impressions on this one. And I will say I was very happy, very relieved that the show is getting back to its main plot points that have been teased since episode 1 of season 1. Seeing more with the Kaminoans really piqued my interest. Seeing how fast that plot line is starting to move, where the puzzle pieces are all shifting, they're all starting to connect. Everything is feeling like I was saying the last couple episodes. There's no stakes. There's no like nail biting moments or anything that kind of pique my interest as far as like, oh my gosh, somebody's in trouble. But like, oh man, they're already shifting the clones somewhere else. What's going on with War-Mantle? You see, the Admiral is really putting things in motion. Rampart, there you go. Rampart is putting things in motion. The action was fantastic. Seeing Republic commandos made me want to scream at 3 a.m. because yes, I actually did end up like waking up in the middle of the night, going to the bathroom and saying, hey, it's like 2:55. I might as well just watch this episode right now and go back to sleep. So I was up there with Ben watching it. But I'm starting to ramble too much, so I'm going to throw it over to you, man, because I really enjoyed this episode. What were your initial thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Well, initially, I can say when we got into the first 3 minutes of the episode and they mentioned we're on a job for Sid, I thought, oh no, please don't do this to us. And then Rex popped up and everything was good. So, that was a big relief. I was like, oh yes, here we go. Here comes the, what we've been waiting for, basically. I thought the episode was a blast. Like you said, going just the mission itself, like going to rescue Rex's buddy. You have just like War-Mantle unfolding. Like you said, the puzzle pieces are falling into place. The Kaminoans are dealing with everything they're dealing with Admiral Rampart. The Bad Batch, them dealing with Republic commandos, and also the stormtroopers we see. They're like the original Ralph McQuarrie
Yeah.
concept design, and I thought that was amazing. Like that's one thing, one like big hats off to Lucasfilm is they're really good at incorporating Ralph McQuarrie like concepts. Like we have the stormtroopers in this. We have the like back in Rebels, the episode where we had Zeb versus that droid, like that assassin droid on the base, on Chopper
Mm-hmm.
base. Like that episode,
The
that was the original
walkers.
concept art for C3PO and Chewbacca by Ralph McQuarrie. Like, little things like that. Like, big hats off to Lucasfilm for including, he's one of the biggest integral pieces of Star Wars, like still including him in these projects. So I thought that was really cool. And then, of course, the main point of the episode, or the main result of the episode, you have Hunter getting captured. Like, that's going to become very interesting to see where that leads. Like, I'm very interested to see, though, do we get a, like, is this episode, is it just leading up to a whole, like, you have Crosshair basically saying, I've been looking for you, but is it going to be a thing where it's like clever editing in this episode, and then you basically get Crosshair and Hunter alone, basically like saying, hey, I need to get out of here type of deal.
Huh.
So I don't know. But like the episode was really good as a whole, in my opinion. Like it was really good. And we finally my thought when the episode ended, my thought was the Bad Batch is back on track. Like that was literally what I thought.
Yeah, same here, same here. Also the music was fantastic. I love the old school Star Wars like Death Star music. So
Yep,
cool
A New
because
Hope.
even the base looked like the Death Star with the lights and everything, the steel, the grayness of it all.
Oh yeah. Like that's what I was thinking. I was like, holy smokes, this feels like we're like obviously it's on a planet, but it feels like we're inside the Death Star. Like just the way the editing was done, the way the music was cut, like I was smiling through the whole episode. Like I said, at 3 in the morning, like
Yep.
for us to be getting excited at 3 o'clock in the morning after what we've dealt with the last few weeks with this show, like I hats off to the show because I was very happy. I was satisfied. Like, this good of an experience makes me say, well, I might as well get up at 3 in the morning the next 2 weeks to watch the final two
Yeah, that's what I'll
episodes.
probably end up doing myself. Um,
Yep.
but going back, I'll kind of walk through this because I write my notes in like chronological order. But going from that opening scene, you just like see the leaves and somebody just running through the jungle. Did you know that was Gregor from the beginning? Did you have any hint that could be Gregor, or did you just think it was just some random clone we haven't met before?
Um, I didn't realize specifically it was Gregor. Honestly, I was thinking maybe it's going to be another a character from Clone Wars, but I just hadn't thought of Gregor, like but I assumed it was someone we had known before. Because there's no way we were just going to have some random clone trooper in my opinion.
Yeah,
So I just thought I knew it was going to be somebody. I just wasn't sure who at first.
yeah. I just thought it was really clever editing by the people involved with going back and forth and having those dogs from season 5 of the Clone Wars. I believe that was with Ahsoka when those mastiff like little dogs the clones had on the lead. I was like, holy crap, this is intense. Like he's running through this forest, you don't know where he is. He's putting the beacon under the rock, and then they shoot him with a sunblast. And that was another thing I noticed. Was like, I think it's the first time in Star Wars that I noticed when somebody shot somebody with a sunbolt and they didn't go down immediately. Like I don't know if it was like the clone army he was wearing, or they just forgot to calibrate their stun bolts or something like that. But it was interesting because like his leg went numb, but he kept going, he kept going, and they just like collapsed.
Well, I think I think it definitely has to do with the clone armor he's wearing because Gregor is a commando technically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. See, I mean that'll play into what we discuss further later on in the episode, but I'm pretty sure it has to do with the armor that he's wearing.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Going forward, uh, I think the planet is just cool. I like seeing different planets. I think one of the best examples of some positives I can bring up when it comes to the Bad Batch is the variety of planets and the variety of new planets or planets that we've heard but we haven't seen before. Because we haven't seen Ord-Mantell, we've been seeing a lot of that. That's pretty cool. Heard a lot about Pantora, never seen it. Looks really good in this. Get this brand new planet, Daros or whatever it's called. I think is it Daros?
Uh, Daros. Yeah, Daros is how it sounds like it's spelled Daros is how I would guess.
That's what I wrote it down in my
Daros.
notes. Yeah, so
Yep.
I think Bad Batch has been doing a really great job with expanding the universe for sure. Um, but yeah, just going into more of Greg, or as we already touched on him. What'd you think of the character? Because I thought it was really cool that it gives people a crash course about who he is without beating us over the head with the exposition. He's like, oh yeah, like I got destroyed before and I'm back together again, or something. Like I got killed by, or I got hit by a bomb and here I am again, or something like he just made some
Yep.
very like simple kind of exposition, didn't beat us over the head with it. He still had that like kind of like humorous attitude, but it wasn't at the extent that we see him in Rebels like 10 years later or 15 years later, whatever it is.
Yep. I thought they did really well because when you get into shows like these or into other shows, no matter what it may be, like even I've had talks with friends about the upcoming Ahsoka show. Even I do have like fears that we might get into a situation in that show where like Ahsoka just does an exposition dump to explain who Ezra is. Like like you get into shows like these and you have that fear of like, okay, if you're introducing a character we already know, but this character is technically new to this show, which could be new to this audience. You have the worry of, okay, are we going to get like a 40-second exposition dump? Like, hey, I'm this guy from the Clone Wars. I fought with this guy, blah, 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 blah. And, like you said, they did a really good job with Gregor. He said he's gotten blown up before and survived. Like, that was really good. And, basically, that's all we really needed to know about him. Like, even if you're a new viewer of the show, of anything Star Wars, like if Bad Batch is your first viewing experience, like, you get, hey, this guy was some type of an important clone trooper. He was in a mission. He's gotten damaged before. He survived. And, he was training these new recruits. And that's pretty much all they needed. All you as an audience member needed to know about Gregor.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Gregor, why he could have been escaping and not like the other clones. Do you think that maybe since the explosion, his chip was maybe like thrown off a little bit? So I think that could have
Yep.
damaged his chip, and that makes him think more freely compared to the other clones, and why he was trying to escape the first time. Do you agree with that being like a plausible or logical kind of explanation of where the heck his motives are compared to the rest of them?
I would say so because I mean we've already had almost like a precedent set in this series. Like, if clone troopers get rattled, it can either like potentially bust the chip or kick the chip in. Like in Wrecker's case, it basically accelerated his chip to activate. Like, since he got his head bumped and stuff. So like in Gregor's case, most likely his chip was just damaged and he like didn't activate it or whatever. Or who knows, maybe he was one of the clone troopers, kind of like Hauser, where he was like closer with whoever, he was with, etc. And maybe it didn't work, but I would definitely lean on the side of it probably got damaged when he was in that like explosion and stuff.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about the whole idea of having conscripted stormtroopers versus clone troopers, because I mean that is one of the running themes throughout the show is how did it get from a certain point to what we see in A New Hope? Why is there replacements for clone troopers? I think this episode dove a little bit deeper into that. And just seeing firsthand how the Empire's been. I mean, this was something that they talked about in episode one, basically, or episode two. Like, basically, they mentioned War-Mantle like immediately after the facts of Order 66. So I guess Palpatine is like, okay, as soon as the clone troopers do execute Order 66, they're useless. Their job is done. We're gonna get the endless amounts of people in the galaxy that already believe in the Empire at this point. Throw them in there as the guards. It's like it just seems like bam, bam, bam. This was all planned out to a specific timing.
Oh yeah, like you know, like sure, clone troopers are humans, but they're pretty much like droids for the Empire. Like they just view them as like, hey, they're just another basically thing we're using to get our mission taken care of. And like you said, now they use the clone troopers to train the stormtroopers, and boom, here we are. Like you know, before we know it, they pretty much are getting made irrelevant. And I saw a tweet, and it's true. It was ironic tweet, but it's like, hey, think about it this way. Like, the clone troopers executed Order 66 to wipe out the Jedi. Now look, they're basically getting their own Order 66 on them with War-Mantle. Like, they're getting basically taken out. Like they're basically being made irrelevant. And, it's just pretty neat seeing the way they're heading. Like I love hearing the stormtroopers being called TKs. Like that's great. And I just yeah, it's really really cool seeing how they're making this transition. Like it's what we've been wanting from the show, so it's nice that we're getting it. And they did it in a way, like that's another big thing. Props to everyone working on this episode. Like this episode was only like 25 minutes long, but it didn't felt like it was rushed.
No.
It felt just right, in my opinion. Like the story flowed. It wasn't rushed. We didn't get exposition dumps or anything. Like it was done really, really well on how they told the story.
Yeah. Oh man, I think last week I said, oh yeah, the cliffhanger for season one is gonna be like the first stormtrooper, like the last post credit scene or something. We're gonna see a stormtrooper stepping out of a transport, and that is gonna be the major plot. But looking forward, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit. Looking forward, like the ramifications of the stormtroopers being introduced now, but it's not just that because now they're already taking out the character the Camino in. Lama Su basically kill. Like I assume they are killed off screen. The door closing.
Yeah,
he's
he's
guys
definitely
with
terminated.
guns. He's dead. Nala Se, she's being. They're already making plans to get out of there. What I liked seeing the clone cadets. That was really cool, by the way, because it's like, you have clone cadets. They're probably the last clones we'll ever see, because they're not going to make any more clones at this point. So you have those little tiny clone cadets just looking at like, wow, we haven't seen them since the Clone War episodes, and we're seeing our last little batch of clones right there. But Nala Se, she's got an assignment somewhere else. Is she going to actually abide by that now? Because we already seen her disobeying like the Empire in that very first episode. We're shutting that door to try to buy the Bad Batch more time with Omega. So whether or not she actually conforms and it doesn't at the last second try to rebel against the Empire, because the clones were her project. Like she is the one, the medical person. They have a sweet spot for her. I'm sure she doesn't want her clones to be like doing an aimless thing, having an aimless direction. Didn't they say something about they needed new buyers or something? They needed like a new buyer for their clones.
Their contract was, the Empire eliminated all their contracts, and but Lama Su basically said, we're so good at this cloning thing, there'll be more suitors for us, basically.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if Emperor Palpatine will put some Sith Eternal people in contact that look like they have no affiliation at all with the Empire, right? Like what could happen is you have like, I don't know, Sly Moore or whatever the other guy is, the blue guy with the horns. What is his name?
Masamita.
Masamita. One of
Yep.
those agents of the Emperor, somebody even more secret than that. Like, hey, I haven't like Safe, kind of like Sifo Dyas. Like Sifo Dyas was like a mysterious guy, ordered like 10,000 clones. What happens if they get their cloners to move over to Exegol? They already found Exegol at this point, maybe, and they're going to start setting up all their experiments there with Snoke experiments and all that kind of thing. I feel like that's what Nalase could be up to.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is as well, we got to remember like up to this point we've seen only on screen mainly other than the clones Kaminoans working with Nalase and Lama Su. And Mando, Dr. Pershing was wearing the Kaminoan outfit and he was a human. So it makes you wonder, could she get taken out and maybe the Empire just basically be like, hey, we're taking this technology and we're taking, like you said, to Exegol or wherever it may be.
Mm. But it's just so fascinating because this really does accelerate my ideas and my speculation for this season and how it ends. I feel like their next episode they're gonna rescue Hunter, and we're not sure
Yep.
about how long these last two episodes are. I'm really kind of hoping that we get like a double feature or something like that for like the last episode, be it like a double length episode or even a triple length like the first episode was, as like the Battle of Camino. Because if we're gonna have a Battle of Camino, I would think that it would happen like kind of now. The clones are already
Yep.
there. Now let's say might have like a certain program in their minds to be like, this is my failsafe for the clones that I inputted there, and it is to basically go against their commanders. Be like, I'm
Yep.
not letting them like make us irrelevant. We're gonna take them out, kind of thing. So I
Oh yeah, I
feel
could
like that
I
could
could definitely
definitely
see
be
that.
coming now. Rather, I was thinking that could happen next season, maybe. But the way things are going, the way that Lava Su is basically dead already, it's like, oh crap, things have accelerated very, very quickly here.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, we've been talking about this maybe being into next season. No, this is going to happen most likely in these next two episodes because, just naturally for this being a show, just naturally your season finale has to be a bang. So, what's the biggest like quote unquote like bang we could get for this season? It has to be the clone troopers like uprising, you know, against the Empire, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And I'm interested to see as well. Um, could we get, I know this is like getting into speculative territory, but could we get a good old fashioned showdown of Delta Squad and Bad Batch? Because we already saw one member. Think about it this way, like so I'm sure like vigilant viewers noticed the commando that was leading the stormtroopers in the base when they were escaping with Gregor was Scorch from Republic Commando, the video game. So it begs the question: where are the other squad mates? Where's Boss and Fixer and Sev? Like, and if you think about it this way, these characters or the Delta Squad is basically a mirror image, and at this point anyways, and I mean in canon it would be they're basically like the evil image of the Bad Batch. So could we get a potential Delta Squad appearance? Because it could be an interesting thing. It would make sense because we've seen Scorch in this episode, and Hunter is captured right now, so we may see them. And I think that's a possibility. But even if that doesn't happen, the show has to end with a bang. Like they're not gonna like at this point, like you said, there's too many events accelerating for this not to be a big bang for the final couple episodes.
Yeah, it's a really cool idea you just had about Delta Squad versus Bad Batch. What I kind of foresee happening is maybe they somehow like defeat and kill Crosshair, and what happens in doing so is then Rampart is like, well, we're gonna have to send in the actual elite squad, and that is the Republic Commandos of Delta Squad, and that's gonna be like the tease for season two. Like he's like,
Yep.
he basically like you got Crosshair wasn't good enough. I'm sending in the big dogs after these guys. Fight fire with
Oh
fire. I'm
yeah.
gonna send in the other elite squad to wipe these guys out.
Yep. I can definitely see it going that way. and then even going off like it's amazing seeing how like that's one thing I'm glad I saw a lot of people saying it as well. I'm glad they didn't nerf Scorch just for to go with the plot of this show. Like I'm glad they made him still an awesome like kick-ass Republic commando, like because they could have just made him like a lot of these other ones, just basically be a mediocre like villain type character. But if you watch, he gets blasted 5 times by the stun blast before he goes down.
Yeah.
So and it's great too, because like for anybody that played the commando games, when your health got all the way down to where you were about dead or before you're about so like when you would get killed in the commando games, you want to actually get killed, basically you would get downed, where
Oh, yeah.
your squad mates would have to come and revive you. Well, with like Scorch's when he gets blasted those 5 times, like when he goes down, his armor's smoking a little bit, and that's exactly what happened in the commando games. Like if you would go
Oh.
down, your armor and stuff would be smoking before they would like zap you back to life, basically. So it was cool seeing that they included that. And again, you know, they didn't kill Scorch, so it just makes me interested to see like that. Sure, this could just be a cameo, whatever, for kicks, but it could just lead to something else, and it just shows, tying back to our beginning point when we started talking about this episode. That's why Gregor didn't go down right away, because he was wearing the commando armor, and that's presumably why like the Bad Batch are able to take such a beating as well, because they have more stronger reinforced armor like the commandos.
Yeah. I'm feeling like I'm gonna have to do a replay of Republic Commando. Certainly after I watch the rest of this season, if there is any tease at more to come with Delta Squad for sure. Um, let's talk a little bit about that awesome. I thought it was a really cool sequence at the end with the Marauder attack shuttle. You got good old Wrecker on the back turret there, taking out the V-wings, and it just that was so well done. I feel like that the V-wings crashing into one another. I believe you actually had stormtrooper pilots as well, if I'm not mistaken, that were
Yep.
piloting those ships. That was really cool. I'm all for it. Like I'm all for like those classic like turret shots. Star Wars is known for that. Millennium Falcon chase, all that stuff from A New Hope. Getting on the turrets. So hey, I like seeing more homages to that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Also, fun thing to point out too. Hunter's the only one who actually would be willing, who or not Hunter. Wrecker was the main one who would be willing to kill his own, like kill stormtroopers. Because the others were just using stun blast. Like he didn't hold back when they were fighting off at the end there. So I thought that was cool, and it's going to be interesting to see though. Will, as like Hunter and Tech and Echo, all the Bad Batch Omega, etc. Like, will they start to change their tune instead of using stun blast, since they are going to start knowing that these are not their brothers anymore? Like, will they start just blasting? So it's interesting. I'm going to be interested to see if they do that, just because that could be the way they go. But then again, they may not, just because they may not want like to have that much violence.
Well, we've seen that violence before. I don't think they have a problem, like especially episode 3 or 4.
Oh yeah, that's true.
When they were like shooting, like Fennec Shan was just wasting guys on speeder
Oh
bikes,
yeah, I guess
innocent people.
Crosshair took his own guys out too.
Yeah, they're not shy about that. So
That's true.
it was great seeing more Echo. I feel like Echo's really taken a back seat in the last few episodes. So seeing him and how he's like so dedicated to the mission and finding his brothers and all that stuff was fantastic there as well. But yeah, I mean, I really did enjoy this episode. I didn't really see a lot of negatives in this episode. Whereas last week we spent so much time. I have an entire page of just positive things that I had to say about this episode, and this is what we need, a win like this to get us hyped. And I feel like our tone has changed. I feel like last week we almost felt like watching some episodes were boring, and they almost felt like they were a chore. They almost felt like, oh, here we go again. I got to sit down and watch this show and hope that it gets better. And well, I won't ever like, I'm not going to give it like the benefit of the doubt or anything because I still feel like it wasn't worth putting that episode where it was because it really did derail all the momentum that we got from the Ryloth couple episodes. And I just don't see now with where this is going. I just don't see like that criminal showing up on the last episode and making like that make it feel like it was worth it. I feel like they should have just saved that for season two, where they'll probably bring that character again. You know, if we get season two and all that. I feel like they'll pull Loki at the end of the finale episode. They'll be like coming back for season two. They'll probably just do something like that. Because why else would have they not announced anything yet? But yeah, with that, I mean, unless you have anything else to say, we're gonna just go ahead and wrap it up. Give it scores out of 10, like we always do here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for the most part, I thought it was, really good. Like, yeah, I don't really don't have any other comments to say about it. Yeah.
All right, so wrapping it up, I will kind of echo, no pun intended, what I thought about this episode. It started off with a bang. Great kind of editing, different way to start off the episode, having this trooper having the high stakes of running through, we don't know what's happening to them, going back to the Camino and seeing how fast that plot line is accelerating, seeing everything kind of coming to a thrilling close in just two more episodes, seeing the homage to the classic trilogy, whether it be the Macquarie Stormtroopers or being the awesome musical cues that were playing throughout this, seeing a brand new planet in Star Wars that was unique in itself, but it still recalled something like Endor, seeing that awesome V-Wing battle, seeing Republic Commandos actually doing something in canon, because the only other time we've seen them was just like handing off a dead body on like a rainy night in one of the Clone Wars episodes, and that's literally the only time we've seen Delta Squad or any Republic troopers. So very psyched about that. Seeing, the revelation of the Bad Batch, seeing like the helmet rolling off of the Stormtrooper, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's not one of our brothers. Like, what's going on here? They're replacing us. So having those complex ideas revolve around the clone's head, saying like, oh, this is a turning point of the war. What is our role going to be? What is our brother's role going to be now that we're being left behind? The fact that Hunter is the one that is now lost. The Hunter is the one that's now in prison. We've seen it time and time again where Omega was constantly being taken, then escaping, taken, then escaping on her own. But now it's like, okay, crap has really hit the fan when Hunter is the one that has to be rescued. And I love it because it adds a cliffhanger to the show. We haven't really gotten a lot of cliffhangers. Most of the episodes end off either, at Sid's place or on their own ship, like done with the mission. So I like seeing that now we're getting more of that serialized ending to the show where it's all going to connect. I feel like instead of a two-parter, it's almost going to be like a three-parter, including this episode here with War-Mantle. Seeing cadets, seeing more of Echo. Not much else I could say. I got to give this one a 9 out of 10. I really did enjoy this episode. Far cry from last week's. There's lots more going on in the heads of the heads of the Bad Batch that we haven't seen a lot of development, and now we're getting more of that in long strides here. So I will turn it over to you. But yeah, 9.0 from me.
Yeah, I mean, I can echo pretty much every sentiment you said about this episode. I thought it was really good, start to finish. We start off with a bang with, like it really hooked us with, what's going on, what's this clone trooper getting captured. And then, just the fact that, we're pretty much done with the Sid storyline. Like, I'm very happy about that. So that's a big bonus. And then just, like you said, all the little tie-ins, like the tie-ins to the original trilogy, the tie-ins to Ralph McQuarrie, this time it's Hunter getting captured. And then, of course, getting the Republic Commandos in there, like, specifically Scorch, like from the game, and, them not making him an easy like cakewalk for the Bad Batch. Like that was great. And then of course the Camino storyline. We've been wondering, are we ever getting back to that? Like, is this just a storyline they forgot about or something? So it's great that they're getting back to it, and like, they're picking up the pace, like, like you said, they're putting the puzzle pieces together, and that's progressing. And then it ends with Crosshair capturing Hunter, and it's going to be interesting to see what their relationship ends up being, just because Hunter obviously is going to try to talk him out of it, and We'll see how Crosshair reacts. And then, on top of all that, another big props to this episode, as I mentioned earlier, we didn't get an exposition dump from Gregor. Like, that was a big bonus, because as soon as we found out it was Gregor, I thought, here we go. Are they going to do an exposition dump? And they didn't. So I was like, credit. I'll give credit where credit is due. Like, they did really, really good on this episode. And I think the most important piece of this episode that is overlooked is this episode finally had the formula where, in my opinion, they should have been doing this all season long. Make the end of the episode count. Make it hook you to the next week. Like, this ending with Crosshair capturing Hunter, that hooks us for this coming week. Last week's episode, in comparison, we could have just stopped watching the show because it didn't hook us at all for today's episode. So I thought it was really good that they actually hooked us for the next episode. And, presumably, or hopefully, we're going to be getting, either, like you said, it'll be probably a 2-part finale. Like, it'll be part 1 and part 2 for the next 2 weeks. But I hope the finale is like, just like the premiere episode where it's like 40 minutes or 45 minutes long or something. Like, I think that'll be really nice if it would turn out to be that way. But I think we're getting, the clone, like, Camino Uprisings thing. I think that's going to happen over the next 2 episodes. Obviously next week's is going to be about Hunter, but I think that's what's going to be happening. It's always cool seeing the Kaminoans. Like, that is one thing I always enjoy, like, no matter what it is. Like, I always thought those creatures were, like, pretty cool. Even going back to Attack of the Clones, when I first saw that movie as a kid, I was like, man, those are cool looking aliens. So it's always cool seeing them. And it's going to just be interesting to see the implications of what that storyline entails. Like you said, the cadets from Camino, where are they going? Like, what's going on with them?
Mm-hmm.
So you have that. Yeah, I don't. The show is back on track. I'm really excited for it. And just a little bold prediction. Now that I was thinking about it while you were explaining your points, Chris, I think there is a decent chance we get Delta Squad, possibly, because maybe in this series so far, look, we've gotten subliminal hints about Republic Commando already. Like, back in the Cad Bane episode, when Hunter wakes up, the visor literally looked like it was taken right out of the Republic Commando game.
Yeah.
And then now we have Scorch appearing. So I think, like you said, I think we could get a thing where it's like, hey, these guys couldn't do it. Let's send in, the original Republic Commandos. So I think my bold prediction is I think we will get them either in the next couple episodes, or it's potentially going to bleed over into next season of this show. But with all that being said, I am going to have to agree with you, and I'm going to have to give this episode a 9 out of 10. It's one of the best ones so far this year, and I was really happy with it, and I think we're going in a very good direction to finish up this series.
So there you have it, 9.0 for me and Ben, and we'll definitely hear Milton's thoughts on this episode as well next week. So just a little bit of an update on the channel. As I mentioned before, I have my reviews for Out of the Shadow, my recap for Out of the Shadows. I have reviews for Star Wars Adventures issue number 7 on the channel, as well as the High Republic comics for the month of July. Make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to this channel, Starrapter. If you want to know when we go live next, you have to also hit that little notification bell for that to go off as well. And if you want the audio version of this, go ahead and go to your favorite podcast platform of choice, whether it be Apple, Spotify, Google, etc., and just search for Outer Rim Transmission. We have new episodes that roll out the Monday after these go live on Friday on YouTube. So for Ben, for me, you can find Ben on Twitter at RealBenMaynard. Speak to him over there about Star Wars and everything else, sports and whatnot, and you can always see what I'm talking about on Twitter, of course, at Starrapter. So for Ben, for myself, that's going to do it for us here at Outer Rim Transmission for episode number 18 and Transmission.